Life of love. Life of love. With Julie Hilsen.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love, where we gather every week to explore our heart's curiosity, look at how we're living our life of love, whether it's a bumpy day or a clear, soothing, soaring day. We honor each day as it presents itself and bring forth any messages for the highest good. And today we're getting creative on Life of Love, and it's been fun. This season we've had several artists and inspiring stories about how to follow your creative path. And every day you realize is a creation when you really get into it. It doesn't matter if you're holding a brush or you're playing music. It doesn't have to be a traditional creative mode, but it can be the way you're creating your life and showing up to create a life of love. So as I ramble, I have to explore that. And I have Heather Eck with me today. I said it right?
You did, yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, Heather's a dear soul. She's not far. She's up in Raleigh, North Carolina. So she's joining us from there. And on this date, we're having the tropical storm Helen coming through. So everyone's sort of on, this alert that things are going to happen. But luckily, we have a good internet signal and everything's great. We talked a little bit beforehand, and I know everything's just crisp and ready to go. She's an artist. She has a multimedia abstract artist and a writer, and she's working on a book. She also teaches people to create from their intrinsic, their ability to feel what to paint. And I'm going to let her talk about that. She's an intuitive artist and painter, and she can interpret people, places, and experiences through color. And she's going to talk to us about what that's called. Synesthesia?
You got it.
Okay. Yeah. So welcome, Heather, to Life of Love. We're so happy to host you today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, it's just an honor, like I said before, because you questioned the way you were showing up in your life from what I was reading. You were in corporate, you had checked all the boxes, and sort of parallels to my story where I was like, wait a minute, I should be so happy and there's something missing. And you went for it. You always had the call to paint, and you answered it. But yeah, how did you know that you had this synesthesia?
It's so funny. I didn't know what it was called, but I knew that when I took in food or drink or smells, something in my mind like created an image or created movement or color. And so when I was younger, I would lay on the floor and draw the music that I was listening to and the shapes that it would make and things like that. And so it wasn't until about a year or two ago that I learned that it was called synesthesia. And it's basically where your senses cross in your brain. And so you might, there's like 80 different forms of it too. There's something like mirror touch synesthesia where you feel somebody's pain in your body, or like days of the week where you see those as color, or you take in numbers as a color, or sound to color. There's all different kinds. So I have a lot of them. And I just kind of had to kind of Google it and found out that only about 4% of the population have it, but a lot of people have it and they don't know.
It's like something they suppress because it's never been explained to them as a gift or a superpower.
Yeah.
I love that. I have a friend, and I was looking at her. She was looking for something on her phone, and I'm just thinking of her because I noticed that all her apps were grouped by color
Wow.
on her phone. So I bet she has it in some form.
She probably does.
I was like, Dee, well, how do you? I can't remember she'd be like, oh, the blue ones. All the blue ones are here, and I can
Really
tell.
great way to do it, though.
I just love it. I love our idiosyncrasies, these gifts, and celebrating them. It's just so much fun. And then you made me think of, remember the movie Dumbo?
Yeah.
And it's like they go on that trip, and it's just like I just remember all the colors and the shapes, and it almost looks like an acid trip. But
The
I'm wondering if,
yeah, I know
yeah,
exactly
when
what
the
you're
elephant
talking about.
goes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's a scene in Ratatouille too, which is like my favorite Disney Pixar movie about a chef, a rat who's a chef. But there's a scene at the beginning where he takes a bite of food, and over here there are swirls and colors and things, and that's like a really good visual representation of synesthesia.
Okay, because that's what I was thinking, that kind of thing. That is
Yeah.
so cool. So you started just seeing and experiencing what was there all the time and painting it with acrylics and glitter and gold specks and multi.
I did. Yeah. I was, like you'd mentioned my corporate career and feeling like I had checked all the boxes, but wasn't real happy about anything and started working with a spiritual teacher. And we kind of said, okay, what were you like as a kid? And my childhood was all about art and creativity and creative expression. And so that was always there. So I sort of pivoted and right before my 40s, like my late 30s, and said I want to get back into art, and I kind of dove headfirst in it. And that's when I think something opened up and I said, oh, I actually take people in as color. I see the color that they are, and then started making paintings about what color I saw for them. And it sort of started to evolve into practice of painting the spirit portrait for somebody and their colors.
So did you see a parallel when you, like, say you're painting your neighbor or your child? Did you see a parallel in, like, maybe their chakras and the colors that came out that you're seeing, or spiritually, is there some kind of, I don't know, pattern to it, or is it just depending on the day and that person's mood, and different people, do they have different colors on different days depending on their mood? How does that work?
Yeah, I instantly associated the color that I saw with the chakras without even thinking about it. I just sort of knew, like, oh, if I see light blue and light pink for you, that's your throat and your sacral chakra, or like a peach color, that's your sacral. So I knew right away that that was associated with the chakras. And then started to kind of go, okay, well, there's physical, spiritual, emotional aspect of the chakra associated with that color too. And then I would say, okay, are you someone who's experiencing trouble expressing yourself or being able to communicate something, or are you struggling with your creative expression or relationships? And that's when it started to become like a conversation about not just the color that I saw, but where that person might be spending time in pain, or might be spending time feeling blocked, or just not able to sort of get over the hump of something. So it kind of happened like serendipitously, I guess, that way, where my gift, I think, just started to open up when I made space for it, because I hadn't made space for it before.
And you asked to have the intuition present because you're tuning into that person and saying, how can I help this person? I'm sure maybe it didn't happen immediately that way, but then you were like, I'm here and I'm going to help someone see, because that's the tricky thing about emotions. We're not always ready to see the emotions or feel them. But
Mm-hmm.
if by you painting, you take the linguistics, the brain out of it, and you can just feel it through the colors. So
Yes.
that's what sparked me about it.
Yes.
It lets you feel without having to be so up here in your brain.
I think that's one of the best ways I've heard it described. I think you're exactly right, because sometimes we just don't know what we don't know about ourselves. And so when you are able to see yourself, your spirit, or your essence represented through color, through a painting, through form, I think you give yourself permission to sort of look at yourself differently. And then you can kind of hear, okay, maybe you have been feeling blocked creatively, or maybe your heart doesn't feel like it's able to emit as much as it wants, or maybe you don't feel as much self-love. And so when you see it that way, you kind of go, oh, okay, well, now that I know that, I can move on from it or find a way to work through it. And it's just a different, I think color is a different kind of language that we didn't know we could all speak, if that makes sense.
Yes, I love that so much. And on so many levels, because we're just so trained to label things and identify them. And I'm more of a clairsentient, where I know what I feel, I know what it is, but I can't always say it. And in fact, if I get in a fight with my husband, I can't really tell him what I'm mad at him about right away. Like, I need space, and then I
Yes.
can process and try to identify. But now you're making me think I should just get some big markers or colored pencils and just start drawing instead of trying to be up here to think about it. Maybe that would help me work through it. And what a great, I mean, I know there's art therapy and things, but this seems more spiritual. This seems more in tune with our guides is what I want to say.
Yeah, it's definitely more spiritual. I think what you just said about being able to draw your emotions is part of therapeutic art. I think where you can say what I'm feeling right now, if I had to give it a color, if I had to give it a shape, if I had to draw what it looked like, it allows you to, like you said, disconnect from the brain and go, okay, let me just feel my way through this. And I'm strongly clairsentient too. So I totally understand that. I think that's why art is my gift, because it enables me a way to express the things I may not have otherwise been able to express, because it just isn't in my wheelhouse to be able to describe like what I'm actually feeling.
I honor that. I honor that. And you mentioned you help teach other people how to paint with the intuitive.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share, how you started that, and then a little bit of the process. So if someone could, I'm sure you do some Zoom Zoom trainings or whatever, but it's just it's such an open world as far as connecting. I'm just curious how that works for you.
Yeah, that's so true. At the beginning of the year, I did a workshop where I had the art of letting go and the art of manifestation. And it was all centered around this idea of, if you had to put a shape or a color or a form to something you wanted to let go of, what would it look like? And then allowing the participant to just sort of sit with it and let it become whatever it wanted to become. And so for some people, it would end up being a beach. For some people it was largely abstract, but it was sort of giving yourself the permission to just sit and go with what feels good to you. And that's, I think, the thing that I try to stay closely attached to is, what does it feel like to move through this? Does it feel restrictive? Does it feel loose and free? Do you feel like you have to make it look a certain way? Are you comfortable just letting it be ugly? Are you comfortable just letting it be something you wouldn't ever want to show or share or sell? And just kind of moving through the process of creating for creating's sake. And so those workshops, I think, allow you to kind of disconnect from your day to day and just sit for 30, 40 minutes and draw or paint or scribble and sort of restore this playful, creative essence that we don't always get to have. And I think that's where we get to connect with our intuition more, when we sort of surrender what we expect something to look like.
Yeah, like you said, creating space for that expression. I think that's one of the biggest challenges, to just say it's okay. It's okay to just turn off all your to-do list and just immerse yourself in the creative process, however it looks, because it's going to
Yeah.
benefit you no matter what, because that's what's trying to come out.
Right. I love when somebody's like, oh, it's so not pretty. And I'm like, that's okay. You want to get out of you what you want to let go of. And so maybe it's not pretty. And so, make room for the things that you may not be in love with, let them go, and then make space for the things you want to invite in. And so what do you want to invite in this year? Well, let's draw or write or, paint that and see what comes out for that. Because then your energy shifts and you can make space for allowing those things to come in too. It's really powerful, I think, when you create, whether it's with a pencil or with paint or crayon, but just the act of making is healing for people.
And I think that it's sort of lost that we are creative beings, because we get stuck in the matter and the density of relativity.
Mm-hmm.
But, God, force, goddess, whatever you subscribe to, it always comes back to being, you are creator and it's all inside you. And we try to stuff it down to show up and to get validation. And it's like, no, it's just, you're perfect. Whatever comes out is perfection, because you did it.
That's exactly right.
Try not to judge yourself about it. And I know she was my husband's grandmother, Grandma Eve, and she was a great painter. I have her painting. I have one in my kitchen. We have them like speckled around our house. And she was really good. But before she died, she moved up here to Atlanta, to the, Georgia from Florida, and we'd take her to those paint classes. It would
Yeah.
be like a family trip. And it was so funny because we'd all have the same thing to paint, but it all looked different, and the judgments. I'm like, why are you guys judging? Why is it a competition? Who looks most like the teachers? That's not what we're here for. But you're used to getting grades and art. It's just like, throw that away. Just throw it away.
Throw it away. That's so true. So true.
So Heather, when you get the opportunity to spend time with somebody and you do their first intuitive portrait, because you said it's a portrait, it's not a painting, right? You do portraits?
It's an abstract. My friend Amy came up with this name, so I have to give her credit for it. It's an abstract painting, but because it's of their soul, we call it a portrait. So it's a portrait of your spirit.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, so if you get a chance to do their soul on different occasions,
Hmm.
have you had a chance to do that?
I have. That's really fun to do because when I start with somebody's energy, I'm looking at the place where they spend the most time, where they dwell. And so there might have been in there or a wound there, or it's just something that they're spending time working on. And so I have a friend who we tease is the largest private collector in America because she's got a lot of my paintings, and a lot of them are portraits of her through a period of time, and they're all different. And so what I see for somebody is like a snapshot in the moment of where they are. And so if you look at where she was at the beginning versus where she was a year later, it's completely changed, and in positive ways, because then she's able to work on whatever she wants to work on. And what I like about using color in this instance is that I think when you learn to understand how color benefits you emotionally, spiritually, physically, you start to want to bring different colors into your space or into your home to minister to you. And so her home went from reds and grays to blues and yellows. And so she kind of pivoted from root from root and lack into being able to speak and understand exactly who she was. So that's
Being more
really cool.
heart-centered, like, that is so cool.
It's really cool.
That is really cool. You made me think of something. Yeah, because we forget how intuitive and sensitive we are as people. And this is another example of things that you expose yourself to can either help you or be neutral or harm you. That's something that it's more of a conscious living. So you could pay attention. My gosh, my whole wardrobe is like gray and black. No wonder I feel drained all the time. And then you get the feng shui in your wardrobe. You can
Yeah.
work on your soul through colors.
Yes, that's exactly
That's what
right.
you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally true. I had a doing laundry, and I had hung a bunch of stuff to dry, and so I was getting ready to hang it back in my closet, and I stopped for a second and looked, and almost every single hanger had something striped on it. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Because over that period of like a week or two, I had worn stripes nonstop. And so horizontal stripes are about surrender. And so I could sort of see myself trying to move into a place of surrender almost every single color. And so I was trying to surrender in my root. I was trying to surrender in my heart. I was trying to surrender in my throat. It was just surrender. So I think like you're right. We subconsciously choose things around us, and they're telling us something that we may not be aware of. But then once you start to pay attention, like you said, oh my gosh, I've just worn black this whole week. What's going on? I'm sitting in a place of trying to protect myself. Maybe I'm trying to save myself from something that's going on, or I'm trying to blend in a little bit and not be seen. And so you can kind of ask yourself, okay, what's going on here, and check in and figure out what it means. It's pretty cool.
I love that because you're not saying this is definitely what it means. You're like, check in, see if a message comes. Get
Yes.
quiet, start drawing and see if something comes forward.
Yeah,
And those are the most beneficial because it's your soul talking to you, right?
that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. That's
What
exactly
a gift.
right. And
But you
it's
have seen patterns like horizontal stripes is surrender.
fun.
What would you say grief would be? Like, if you think you've gotten beyond, like, because grief has so many stages and there's so many people grieving. Even like you grieve when relationships change. Might not even be that somebody's left to another plane. It could be, your child left to college and you don't see him or her as much. So you grieve the loss of that relationship being that day to day. Or do you, is there a pattern or something you see for grief? Does anything come
I
up?
do. I see grief in people as like a gray blue color. So it's kind of like a muted blue gray. So I associate the blue with the throat and the gray with gray can be a neutral color because it's between black and white, but I also associate it with a feeling of lack or a feeling like you're missing something. And so I feel like there's both the inability to sort of express and and there's this somewhere where you feel like you're missing something. And it's interesting to see how people move through stages of grief and how that changes with them depending on what you like, where they are in the process of grief, and and thinking that there are ways to help them get out of that, or not get out of it, but to move through it with a bit more ease, with color and with therapeutic art and with music, and finding different modalities that'll help elevate the spirit or to just bolster the energy a little bit more to give you something to look forward to. So I would like, for people who are in that grief space, I tend to kind of prescribe colors that are more uplifting, like an orange or a yellow, that are more optimistic, or they're energizing, or they're going to help bring in a little bit more energy to pull that feeling back up again.
I love it. And also recognize where it is because it's valid and you're moving through it. You're not running away from it. You're
Exactly.
starting where you are.
Yeah.
And the metaphors are crazy, or the similes, because it's like when you mix the colors, you get a blending of them. And so it might be that you're starting in one color and you just sort of changing to another, and it's just, oh, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I can see how much fun it is to be playing with these colors and experiencing everything through the color or the friend.
Yeah. Exactly. My friend color. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend color.
Hmm.
Oh, man, this is so cool. So it goes beyond what's on your walls. It's your clothing, it's what you look at, it's what
Yeah.
you're focusing on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even to watch the trends that enter into stores, or home trends, where you see, like, in the last couple of years, a lot of our homes have pivoted away from color that to become more white and gray. And so it's interesting to see that some of those colors have been taken out. And even in kids' clothes, a lot of baby clothes now are in muted tones. They're not these bright, vibrant colors anymore. So from like a higher, like a collective consciousness component, you can watch like trends of colors move us through things too. Like during 2020, I think the two colors of the year from Pantone were gray and yellow. And I thought that was so interesting because a lot changed for us. We lost a lot of connection. We lost the ability to be in person. And so that gray to me represented this general feeling of lack. And then yellow, which is all about your identity, your self worth, your confidence. So it was so interesting to watch those two colors sort of like lead the path forward, because they
Yeah.
represented something that was happening in a bigger way for a lot of us. It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. And you said it's collective consciousness, but does it come from fashion designers, or how do they determine? I know I like to go to the paint store and see what the colors of the year are at
Yeah.
Sherwin-Williams. It's sort of fun to look at those and be like, oh, that one came back, because they always come back.
It's like fashion, right? Like all the 80s and 90s clothes are back right now. It's so interesting. But yeah, we cycle. I think we go through cycles as individuals and as a collective. And so watching color cycle through, watching fashion cycle through, it's been interesting to see. I'm not sure who comes up with that, but I'm assuming, I feel like it's all of us sort of like moving in a specific way, and it's sort of we kind of communicate to each other through our energy somehow, even if we're not aware of it.
I believe we are one, that everything, every thought, we're affected by everything. So that
Yeah.
resonates with me so much. And so working through these things makes a big difference. I honor this. It's so fun. So have you done like families? Have you get a chance to do like a mom and the kids and the dad, or, like, is there commonality between lineage, or everyone is different as, I'm
As
just
they get,
wondering, like,
yeah.
chromosomal.
I have done family portraits, which is so interesting because they all sort of, sometimes they'll sit within the same kind of color scheme, or sometimes they'll be a little bit different. But I've done them for couples too, so you can sort of see one person kind of come up in one color and another might be complementary to that. And there sometimes they meet in the middle with another. So it's always interesting to see how those portraits turn out, because I think they all sort of influence one another, but you can see the way they sort of connect to each other too. It's kind of fascinating to do it that way. Or for a new baby, to kind of see like what's the energy of the new baby that's coming in, what color are they inviting in, or what energy are they bringing to the family. It's kind of cool to do something like that too.
Yeah, and what a great way to pick out a nursery color,
Yeah,
something complementary to their soul color.
totally. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like a great gift.
It would.
So can you do it from a picture of somebody, or do you have to physically see them in person?
I work from a picture usually, and I'll spend some time just meditating on somebody's energy in their face. And typically for me, it's like a quick 1, 2 to 3 colors that'll come in. And then I'll sort of meditate with, okay, what's their message? And I'll do like a chakra scan and kind of see where are they in each of the chakras, and then start to work on their painting for them. Pretty
And
cool.
have you ever done where they're in a place that, like you said, they might want to move through, and to visualize where they could be? Do you think it helps them move through it faster? Do you think that's a possibility?
I do. That's a really great question. I worked with somebody whose portrait was blue, so it supported their throat chakra, but there was a little bit of the deep blue for the third eye. And what the messages that came through for her were all about different stories of her life that had to be stitched together. And so the primary message for her was stitch the story together. So after I do the portrait, I'll schedule a Zoom call and we'll sit down and we'll talk about the colors and the messages and songs or different things that have come up throughout the process. And when we talked about her portrait in particular, she was in the middle, I didn't know this, but she was in the middle of writing a book, and she was having trouble connecting the dots from the different things that had happened in her life. So the stitch the story together was especially meaningful for her, because she felt like she was getting clarity on how to actually connect those pieces for her book. And so she keeps her portrait in her office so that she can, look at it and have it be a reminder to her about being authentic and vulnerable and sharing parts of her story that were intended to help other people heal too. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, I think that they're meant to help you heal. I think they're meant to help you learn something different about yourself, and also just to be able to kind of go, okay, this is me. Look at my beautiful spirit. And it's just a reminder that you're not just a body, you're a spirit, and you're meant to do big things and to be supportive to one another.
Yeah, to me, it's reminding people their divinity,
Yes.
their intrinsic divinity,
Yes, absolutely.
how we'd show up if we all walked around like gods and goddesses of our divinity,
With
like
no
what a
fear,
difference.
right? Yeah, truly. Yeah, that's so true.
And to see that in each other person, their god and goddess inside them, it's elevated. I'm going to hold space for that. Just love it.
I love that.
Okay. And I know we're getting up on our time, but one last question. Do you also see colors around pets
I
and
do.
animals?
So I'll do pet portraits for people too, where So I do two things. One, I can do a pet spirit portrait where I can show you the color that I see for the pet. But usually pet colors are higher chakra colors because they have such unconditional love energy for us that they dwell in the upper chakras, which is so nice. Or I do, it's like a realistic pet portrait, but done in the colors that I see for the pet. So it's like an abstract, colorful painting of your pet too. And those are really lovely, especially if you've lost a pet, because it's just a nice way to honor the love that they gave you when they were here.
Oh, yeah. And so many people, if they have to let their pets go, it's just such a hard. I sat next to someone on an airplane last weekend and she lost her old English bulldog and she could barely talk about him. I was like, it's okay, it just takes time, and she's like, I can't get another dog because I'd be betraying his memory, it's like you just can't move on because you have such a piece of your heart. And yeah, it's definitely something. It's something. I was wondering, like, if someone had a really bad dog, if you could be like, well, this is a bad dog.
I know my own dog, Rudy. He's a really good boy, but I tease all the time. I'm like, I love you so much, but you make me so mad because he can just be such a pain. But I think he's here to teach me something. I think when we get those naughty dogs, they're here to teach you a lesson of some kind. And so anytime he's naughty, I'm like, whatever. I don't know what our soul contract is here, but you get on my nerves. But I love you so
I
much.
did see a picture of him. He looks like a little smartass. He looks like he would chew on wires.
He chews on shoes. When he was a puppy, I didn't think we were going to make it through that first year with him because he was naughty. He was so naughty. Ugh.
He's
He's a
just
good
out of
boy.
control. Well, his ears were like, he's got such personality. I
He
could see in
does.
his picture.
He's got this. He's only 6 years old. I guess he's kind of getting up there now, which is hard to say because we've had him since we were puppy. But he was puppy with a little gray beard, so he's always had this little
Little Fu
gray.
Manchu.
Yes, little dog. I love him so much, but man, he gets on my nerves sometimes. But he's such a scaredy dog. He's afraid of everything. I'm like, oh, if you're mirroring for me, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, because we push it down because they're not supposed to be scared. We're supposed to show up with bravado and confidence, and we're not supposed to be intimidated by anything.
Too funny.
Well, I've just enjoyed this so much. How can people connect with you? I mean, there's so much, and your book is coming out, right? Is that getting close?
Writing something. I'm actually about to release a course called Amplify Your Inner Rainbow, which is about using color and art to help yourself heal. So that's
Nice.
coming out. But I love to connect with people. You can find me at heathereck.com/thank you. I've got a bunch of freebies and goodies on there for you, including a discount on a spirit portrait. If anybody feels so moved, that's on there too. And I'm on Instagram at heathereckartist.
Well, thank you for that offering. I'm sure the community would love to check that out, and I'll put it in the show notes too, so that it'll be easy to find. Oh,
Thank
Heather, this has been a delight. I just love this.
Me too. I've loved chatting with you. Thank you. I feel like we could chat another hour or two.
Anytime.